Bronny suffered a cardiac arrest on July 24th during a workout on the USC campus. Bronny was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. The U.S. Open tennis tournament kicked off Monday in New York City. Coco Gauff defeated Laura Siegemund of Germany in 3 sets. Gauff will play Myra Andreeva of Russia in the second round Wednesday night. Michelle Obama was a surprise guest speaker last night when the U.S. Open celebrated 50 years of equal pay for men and women in professional tennis. Today is final cut day for the NFL's 32 teams. Each team must reach the 53-man roster limit by 1 p.m. today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
KBLA Talk 1580. Happy birthday, Michael Jackson. That is the walk-on music for a man who's the author of more than 30 books, more than 100 scholarly articles. He holds the Moore's Professorship of History and African American Studies. Got a PhD in history from Columbia University, a JD from UC Berkeley, and a BA from Princeton. I am talking about Dr. Gerald Horne. Back by popular demand. Good morning, Dr. Gerald Horne.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming on Michael Jackson's birthday of all days. There are so many things to cover, and it seems like whenever you're not on the air with me, our KBLA delegation calls and says, hey, please ask Dr. Gerald Horne about this. Please ask Dr. Gerald Horne about that. So I've got a list of items we have to cover. But we were just talking with attorney Areva Martin about the case of Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, his sentencing yesterday to 3.5 years, his pending appeal. And I wondered if you wanted to take that JD out and comment on your thoughts about Dr. Ridley Thomas.
Well, it's unfortunate. It's tragic. Listeners should know that I'm not impartial. I admire MRT. I know MRT. This is what I suggest, that since this was a federal case, that a grassroots movement should arise to lobby Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, to form a delegation to lobby the White House for a pardon for MRT. I think that there's good reason for a pardon. Perhaps technically we may have to wait till he exhausts his appeals. But in any case, I think we're going to have to do it before January 2025.
Because, right, it would be a Biden situation. I don't know, I think it's a great idea, and it's a federal case, so it would have to be a White House pardon. The governor can't do it. But in an election year, you think Joe Biden would consider that kind of an appeal, that kind of a petition?
Well, here are some of the political issues. MRT is very well known in Southern California and the Southland, not so much nationally. So a pardon might not cause a ripple nationally. On the other hand, the White House would feel that they have California in the bag, and so therefore they don't have to make any special favors or appeals to MRT's constituency. So those are the elements that one has to balance. On the other hand, since you have this tight race to replace Senator Feinstein, and all of the contenders, Schiff, Porter, Lee, will be looking for the slightest advantage, I think that gives the grassroots effort leverage with regard to getting them to troop to the White House to lobby for MRT.
Right, because they need the African American vote. They're going to need whoever it is. They're going to need it. Well, I think it's a great idea. If anyone seems like they would be an appropriate person for a pardon, it's Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas.
Oh, clearly. I mean, we're talking about a giant of Black Los Angeles politics. He's done so much for the community. And also, folks may not realize that unlike most of your politicians, Mark is a bona fide intellectual. He is a bona fide thinker. As a matter of fact, if he had not gone into politics, I'm sure he could have excelled in the academy, which makes all the more unfortunate and tragic this 42-month sentence.
That's a great point, and one I hadn't considered. I mean, he is a brainiac for sure, and someone I've interviewed, many, many times over the years. It always has a well thought out and well researched perspective on most anything that I ask. So yeah, it's a great idea because it's something to do. Besides, of course, people can get involved in fundraising. As Attorney Areva Martin stated, it's going to be an expensive process, this appeal. And I've been really, actually, delighted at how many high-profile people have continued to stand with Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, despite the fact that it might be problematic for them politically or in the work environment. It might not be popular. That people seem to be really grateful for all that he's done for Los Angeles and for Black people, and that has held up surprisingly well, in my opinion.
Well, I recall an article in the LA Times some months ago where they were talking about all the high-profile individuals who had contributed to a significant defense fund for MRT. Yeah. Not to mention the grassroots support, folks sending in $1, $5, $10. I think that bespeaks the appeal that he has had amongst various constituencies.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, we have a lot to talk about. I promised we'd talk about Niger, so we'll do that when we come forward. And there's so many interesting and confusing international issues. I think what happens in Africa now that the head of the Wagner Group is reportedly deceased. Lots of other things that we can touch on with Dr. Gerald Horne. But of course, you are invited to call in if you have a question or comment. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. Today's episode of First Things First is brought to you by Wealth Management Financial Advisors. That's a Black-owned company, been in business a long time. They've got tax services, financial planning, and more. Whether you're an individual, a small business, or a nonprofit organization, it's a great time to get your finances in order. You can find them at wealthmanagementlb.com. That's wealthmanagementlb.com. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Support comes from Getty, presenting the gospel at Colonus. a theatrical event under the stars that reimagines the story of Oedipus. Blending Greek myth with Black spiritual practice, the show follows the blinded Oedipus as he seeks redemption after a lifetime of tragedy. Co-produced by Court Theater, conceived and adapted by Lee Brewer, with music composed by Bob Telson. Thursdays through Saturdays this September at the Getty Villa Museum. Tickets available now at getty.edu.
Labor Day savings start now at Lowe's. Get up to an additional $1,500 off select major kitchen appliances. And save $100 off select laundry pairs, priced $1,396 or more. Plus, pick up the latest DeWalt PowerStack 20-volt max 5 amp hour battery kit and get a select Bear tool free. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valve through 8/30. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for details while supplies last.
Taco Bell's new grilled cheese dipping taco is, well, it's completely new. It's got a fresh fried white corn shell filled with cheese and new slow braised shredded beef with even more cheese grilled outside the shell. But what makes it really special is the dip. It comes with 2 sauces and you dip in one or both. Red sauce, then nacho cheese sauce, maybe more red sauce. This is a next level taco situation that'll have you acting brand new. The new grilled cheese dipping taco. Get one on the Taco Bell app today. At participating U.S. Taco Bell stores for a limited time only while supplies last. Contact store for participation which varies.
I'm David Goldberg, a bilingual elementary school teacher and president of the California Teachers Association. As we start a new school year, there's something new happening in California's public schools. They're called community schools, where families, students, educators, and communities are making decisions as one.
As a parent, I feel like we're really valued as partners in the education system.
Community schools are bridging the systems of academics with the community.
The curriculum is designed around the students and their academic needs.
I know community schools are working. We see it in parent involvement. We see it in student academics.
We saw double-digit gains in math, English, and reading scores.
It's a more innovative, holistic approach to educating students.
I really feel like this is the first time that we're really seeing a system change in our school.
It's innovative, fresh, and they're already working.
We invite you to learn more about community schools as we come together to reimagine public education here in California. And that's why CTA brought you this message.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
Dr. Gerald Horne really is one of our premier scholars, and he is an author whose works can be found at any bookstore, but specifically Black bookstores. If you put his name in on YouTube, you're going to find a bunch of lectures, and I suggest you listen to one or two of them. They will make you smarter. So the situation in Niger, confusing. It's reported in the press as a coup. I had a young man on the show from Niger. He was talking about raising money for his Afrikix Foundation, but he happens to be from that nation. And according to him, the people on the ground are real happy about this. That this is, they don't see it as a coup, they see it as a revolution. And then you've got the United States upset about it and Russia upset about it, which is extra confusing from my perspective. Give us what clarity you can, Dr. Horne.
So Niger is an African nation of about 24 million people just to the north of Nigeria, predominantly Muslim. At the end of July 2023, the military intervened and deposed the elected leader, President Bazoum, who happens to be, interestingly enough, from a minority Arab clan, which suggests he may not have had the widespread popularity. He was certainly popular in Washington. The United States has a military base in Niger, a drone base. France has a military base there. There's uranium there that helps to supply French electricity through nuclear plants. The problem now is that the Economic Community of West African States, led by Nigeria, is contemplating a military intervention to depose this new regime. That is not necessarily backed by the African Union, headquartered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It's not necessarily universally accepted within the Economic Community of West African States. The latest wrinkle is that the regime in Niamey, the capital, have asked the French ambassador to leave immediately, if not sooner. However, he has said that he does not recognize this regime, so he's not going anywhere. so they cut off electricity and water, perhaps even food, to his diplomatic compound. That may give France a rationale for intervening militarily. And then the possible intervention is stirring up a lot of controversy in Nigeria. Keep in mind that President Tinubu was just inaugurated a few months ago, but he's under fire. As a matter of fact, the opposition is dragging out of the closet all manner of scandals that should have been ventilated during the election season. For example, he used to live in Chicago, left Chicago hurriedly in the early 1990s because he was apparently facing charges of drug dealing and money laundering. There was a kind of Pan-Africanism that Du Bois and Garvey would have approved of, that is to say Nigerians wholesaling hard drugs and so-called black Chicago street gangs retailing it. And he is one of the richest heads of state in the world today, interestingly enough, which makes you wonder why he wants to become president. So there's a possibility that he may not survive this crisis. And Nigerian civil society is making a big deal about the fact that right after the regime change in late July, he apparently got phone calls from Vice President Harris. And Nigerian opposition, they're claiming that the United States will not release documents that would further incriminate him on these Chicago charges. And they may be holding that over his head like a sword, prompting him to talk tough about a military intervention in Niger.
Wow, that's a whole bunch of stuff, Dr. Horne. So just what you said about circling back to what you said about the embassy, right? And the French ambassador taking that position, which I think is pretty surprising. You know, if whether they're legit or not, if the ruling party tells you to get out, you know, I think it's a good time to go. But the impression that I got is a lot of the anti-government sentiment, and the reason that this coup or revolution or whatever you want to call it, military takeover, is so popular is because of the anti-French sentiment there in Niger. And to me, that's not surprising given the type of colonizers that the French have been and the fact that they continue to extract money from these so-called former colonies.
Oh, extract money indeed. In fact, I should have mentioned in the opening this pipeline that's being built from Nigeria through Niger up into North Africa into Southern Europe, which is supposed to supply natural gas to make up the loss of Russian natural gas as a result of the Ukraine crisis. And so you should also know that there's a possibility that this military intervention could ignite a response from other military regimes. I'm speaking of Burkina Faso, just north of Ghana. I'm speaking of Mali, for example, a neighbor of Niger. They have said that an attack on Niger will be an attack on their regimes as well.
Wow.
Also, Algeria, which is just to the north of Niger, is quite hostile to French neocolonialism, given the war that France waged in that country before independence in 1962, which was quite bloody. So this crisis in Niger could explode throughout a good deal of North and West Africa.
That is quite concerning. When you said that the Organization of West African States, when you said is not accepted by the African Union, were you talking about the Organization of West African States, or were you talking about a possible intervention by them is not accepted by the AU?
I was trying to suggest that the AU has thrown cold water on the idea that ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States led by Nigeria, will intervene militarily. I also hinted that within ECOWAS, there's not unanimity. Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, which is part of ECOWAS, is not in favor of a military intervention because look at all the problems of West Africa, problems of hunger, not to mention the problems of religious zealotry. That is to say, the Boko Haram in northern Nigeria, which specializes in kidnapping teenage girls, for example. People in Nigeria are asking, why doesn't the regime go after them with more fervor, as opposed to sending the Nigerian military across the border into the neighboring state? And in fact, the sanctions against Niger it's hampering the northern Nigerian economy. And what I find concerning is that as a person who monitors Nigerian media, I'm quite concerned by the fact that a lot of the opponents of the intervention seem to be Hausa, who are disproportionately cited in the north of Nigeria. And as you know, Nigeria has had difficulty since independence in knitting together Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa into one nation. And so it's quite troubling and concerning that the Hausas are not on board, to put it mildly, generally speaking, with regard to this intervention.
I mean, what you've laid out is really helpful, but it's also continuously confusing because on the one hand, you know, you always want to say, well, we support democracies, but when it comes to the you know, sentiment of rooting out the French and all of the havoc that they've wreaked on, you know, the continent of Africa and those internal divisions and then priorities, right? Why are we going to intervene here in Niger when we have these other issues? We know that ECOWAS has successfully intervened in certain situations, right? Like in Senegal and the Gambia. But I was interested to see how they were acting like they were going to go in there, and then they backed off and kind of said, well, you know, I don't know. I can't even remember the reasons they had. They were so innocuous, but that intervention was put on hold, and even the meeting about the intervention was put on hold.
Well, the previous interventions have been small fish compared to an intervention in Niger, which by some measures is as big as Texas, if not larger. If you look at the Gambia, it only has a population of about 500,000. Its territory, that's
it's really nice. I spent time there. It's quite beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But and then if you look at the ECOWAS intervention in Liberia, for example, it, quote, succeeded, unquote, but there were credible stories about the Nigerian military moving entire planks from Liberia into Nigeria, sort of denuding the country. And so a military intervention, it's not a walk in the park. And then you mentioned the bloodiness of French colonialism. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because whenever you have rulers who come to power who want to redistribute the wealth, like Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, somehow they fall victim to assassination. Then that creates a vacuum that oftentimes is filled by these religious zealots, or in the case of Mali, Burkina, and now Niger, the military steps in because they're filling a vacuum because of opposition to French-backed regimes that get tossed out. So it's a very complicated scenario, I'm afraid to say.
You know, it's funny you say that because we did go to Zimbabwe this year, Dr. Horne. And even though, you know, you read about it in the press and I thought I knew, first of all, I loved Zimbabwe. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with it and want to go back there. But secondly, the way that the Western nations continue to punish this country because of Mugabe's action in taking back that land from the white farmers is incredible. I mean, you can't even get a flight into there. We had to fly back to Johannesburg and then fly back from Johannesburg. I mean, it's an ongoing campaign to weaken that government and punish them.
Well, you know, I lived in Zimbabwe in the 1990s.
I did not know that.
And that's where I did research for a book that came out some years ago on Zimbabwe. I agree. It's a very pleasant place to live, even today. If people are looking to escape the United States, assuming a Trump victory in November 2024, I would highly recommend Harare, Zimbabwe.
Let's go to Pedro calling us from somewhere in Los Angeles. Good morning, Pedro.
Well, good morning, Dominique. Calling you from Sun City, Arizona. To be precise. Yes, indeed. Still in touch with my Angelinos. And the one thing I just wanted to comment on, the disparity between sentences there that Mark Ridley Thomas got and his co-defendant got, that's like saying, well, you can have a little piece of the pie, but I'm going to take 3/4 of the pie. I mean, that's not fair. I mean, if you're going to be convicted for the same crime, the sentences should be equal. And I agree, 18 months is an appropriate sentence for Mark Ridley Thomas. This isn't to say that the act that he committed, and incidentally, I remember a program that you did with him, and we won't mention the radio station, where he talked about sentencing if you commit a criminal act. I don't know if you remember that. I remembered it, and it came back to me yesterday. I said, wait a minute. He said that if you do something wrong, you should pay the penalty. Well, he did. Unfortunately, he did something wrong. And as I said, the legacy now is tainted. However, it does not negate the good that he did.
So Pedro, you feel that the conviction is legit, obviously, or you wouldn't be saying he did something wrong. But you think the sentence is too long. Dr. Horne, how do you receive what Pedro's saying?
Well, it's a fair point. My understanding, however, is that the dean of the School of Social Work, who in a sense was a co-defendant,
right,
figuratively, not literally, that she decided to cooperate with the prosecution. And when you cooperate, you routinely and traditionally get a lighter sentence. They penalize you for exercising your constitutional right to go to trial. And I think that helps to shed light on the disparity in sentences between the two. And of course, MRT also could press alternatively for home confinement as opposed to going into a federal prison.
Right, which is what she got. She got 18 months of home confinement as opposed to his sentence, which is 3.5 years in federal prison. It's, yes, we understand she pleaded and cooperated, but it's still a pretty big disparity. It sounds like, Dr. Horne, you think that's about normal, given, as you say, the way you're penalized for standing up for yourself?
Well, it is normal, but since MRT has been able to have a defense fund and been able to raise money for lawyers, I would suggest on appeal that his lawyers raise that question. That is to say, why should you be penalized for exercising your constitutional rights? Perhaps that's a reason to toss out that sentence and perhaps have another sentence negotiated.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because the judge out and out said she was punishing him for not showing remorse, but he's appealing. How are you going to confess to something that you're appealing? That makes zero sense. You don't have to be a lawyer to know that. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne and you on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Maryland, Baltimore African-American Mayor Brandon Scott is launching an attendance challenge for Baltimore City Public School students. The initiative challenges every student to be on time every day, and schools making the most progress will be recognized throughout the year. In addition to a trophy and certificate, there will be a special event for schools that have achieved significant progress at the end of the school year. X, formerly known as Twitter, is reportedly facing some 2,200 arbitration cases that have been filed by former employees. The workers claim they're owed severance after they were laid off from Twitter in the weeks following Elon Musk's acquisition. X could owe $3.5 million in unpaid filing fees. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? Call the accident guys to speak with a real expert attorney for a free consultation.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. LeBron's son Bronny is attending classes this week at USC. No word yet on when he'll be cleared to resume basketball activities. Bronny suffered a cardiac arrest on July 24th during a workout on the USC campus. Bronny was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. The U.S. Open tennis tournament kicked off Monday in New York City. Coco Gauff defeated Laura Siegemund of Germany in 3 sets. Gauff will play Myra Andreeva of Russia in the second round Wednesday night. Michelle Obama was a surprise guest speaker last night when the U.S. U.S. Open celebrated 50 years of equal pay for men and women in professional tennis. Today is final cut day for the NFL's 32 teams. Each team must reach the 53-man roster limit by 1 p.m. today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and is powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
Hello, I'm Will Jimeno. I'm a retired Port Authority police detective and a 9/11 survivor. For 13 hours, I was buried under the rubble of the World Trade Center. I was rescued thanks to brave people who were willing to put their own lives on the line to save mine. For 9/11 this year, a National Day of Service, I'll be paying it forward by taking time to help others. Please join me by doing your own good deed that day. Visit 911day.org.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. Lots of other stuff we could be covering on the motherland. But we got to at least spend a couple minutes talking about our former president, the 45th president, which it sounds like you're implying, Dr. Horne, that you think he could be the 47th president? Like you really think he still stands a chance despite what we're now up to 4 criminal indictments and whatever civil stuff he has rattling around. And the fact that things do not necessarily seem to be going his way from a legal perspective sounds like you still think he could win.
Well, a few points. One, certain polls suggest that right now there's a 50-50 tie between the 45th U.S. president and the 46th U.S. president. Secondly, given that there is a distinct possibility that he will not be punished for seeking to execute a coup d'etat on January 6, 2021, you can't rule out the possibility of more hanky-panky and shenanigans in terms of electoral misdeeds in November 2024. I mean, why would anybody rule that out? I mean, we were just talking about Nigeria and the election of President Tinubu. Of course, there are credible cases there of mass gunmen entering voting booths and snatching boxes of ballots. Now, there is a global precedent for that kind of misdeed. Why won't it migrate across the Atlantic? So, interestingly enough, in Canada, the foreign ministry, they're already plotting and planning for a Trump victory. And they're expecting more U.S. refugees coming into Canada, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned Zimbabwe. So folks need to buckle their seatbelts. We're in for a bumpy ride.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. When I was in Africa this year, I was thinking about, where would I live? I'm team stay and fight, but at a certain point when the fascism is just so rampant in this country, it is worrisome. You start to say, is this going to be a safe place to live?
Oh, clearly. And I don't know. I mean, as they often say on television nowadays, we're sailing into uncharted water. We have a politician, Mr. Trump, who has a cult-like following. They're going to stand by their man through hell or high water. Then you have Trump imitators like Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if you saw the Republican Party debate last week.
I saw some of it. Oh, my goodness.
This 38-year-old man seeks to be Trump Jr. Maybe he's campaigning to be Trump's running mate.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
But in any case, that shows you that even if the 77-year-old Mr. Trump falls by the wayside because of his poor diet, and interestingly enough, you saw that he was listed as 215 pounds after he did his mugshot in Atlanta. I don't think he's been 215 pounds since he was a teenager, by the way.
Right, and I think he gained an inch in height too, right? Because he got to self-report his height and weight.
Yes, and I won't repeat to you what Stormy Daniels said with regard to his purported weight.
I did not see that, but I'm sure it was quite funny. But so yeah, I have a theory, and I could be wrong. I'm hoping I'm not. That this support that we're seeing in the polls will erode as these criminal cases get underway, as more and more stuff comes out. And I know the hardcore MAGA folks are not going to, leave the cult. But I'm talking about those so-called independents or, the people around the edges, and that his popularity will hollow out.
Well, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Recall that in 2015, 2016, one of the ways he was able to prevail is that there were a number of candidates. They splintered the anti-Trump vote and allowed him to win with a plurality. That seems like that's going to be the case again in 2023, 2024. I would, if people really want to see Trump defeated, they should encourage Tim Scott to drop out. Of course, I don't think he will because he's well-funded. Nikki Haley to drop out. I don't think she will because she's well-funded too. So right now, it's a very dicey proposition as to what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does seem like Tim Scott and Ramaswamy are really running for vice president. Ramaswamy, of course, you saw on yesterday saying now that Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and Ibram X. Kendi and others are the new KKK because of their anti-racist, philosophy. And he's also said that Juneteenth is a useless holiday. I feel like he's trying to be the Trump mini-me.
Well, it's apparent that the white supremacists, they love it when they can have a darker-skinned man clamor against black people and against black rights.
Yeah.
He was pressed on those kinds of comments on CNN, but he did not back down, even in the face of news trickling in about the racist killing in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
He stood his ground.
Yeah, I must say I got a kick out of watching DeSatan get booed by the folks in Jacksonville after that, white nationalist terrorist killed 3 black people that, he had the nerve to show up and try to pass himself off as a governor or something.
Well, what's interesting is that the gunman also carried insignia from Rhodesia. Recall that before Zimbabwe, there was a neo-apartheid regime known as Rhodesia. And we know that during that bitter war culminating in independence in 1980, you had hundreds, if not thousands, of Euro-American mercenaries who crossed the Atlantic to fight against African independence. Indeed, Dylan Roof, whatever his name is, the gunman in Charleston, South Carolina, who killed the black people in church, he too carried Rhodesian insignia. And so this is something that's even more disturbing.
That is disturbing. I didn't realize that that this man had the Rhodesia insignia going on. These folks, find white supremacy wherever it is, whites, or as Molly Bell would say, the philosophy of white supremacy, and latch onto it. But the fact that, to your point, folks like Ramaswamy can run around and kind of throw grenades at black people and then somewhat get away with it because they are supposedly a person of color is a playbook that a move from the playbook that I expect to see more of coming from this kind of diverse Republican lineup of candidates.
And speaking of a diverse lineup of candidates, let's not forget Uncle Tim Scott, who is one of the better funded candidates, believe it or not. I recall that when he threw his hat into the ring in South Carolina a few months ago, in the audience was Larry Ellison, the founder and CEO of Oracle, one of the 10 richest men in the United States of America. And I was scratching my head in bafflement, trying to figure out, why would Larry Ellison back Tim Scott? In any case, perhaps he knows something we don't with regard to his chances of becoming vice president.
Yeah, well, he definitely has the big money behind him. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. I do want to, ask you when we come forward about the actual criminal cases against the president, the former president, and this emerging theory that he will not qualify to be president because of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, because he is a treasonous, traitorous, organizer of coups. Could that really stop him? I wonder. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for the Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job paid training, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus are now even putting their money in your pocket with a one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus. Let us connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in your community, then we invite you to join the team. Start your journey by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more information, visit culvercitybus.com or call the live customer service operator at 310-253-6500. Again, 350-253-6500.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talents, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, I am Jasmine Carson, LSU Women's Basketball National Champion. I had to up my game, and this time I upped my intimate grooming routine too. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area. Featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and a skincare regimen that is dermatologist tested, Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenice.com to learn more about the full regimen of products.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right now.
Right now, I got a million questions for you, Dr. Gerald Horne, but I want to go to Tom from Irvine and squeeze him in first. Hi, Tom. Tom?
Dr. Horne. Yes. Hello.
Hi.
I'm here.
You're on.
Yes. Dr. Horne, I listen to you every Saturday. I learn so much. The reason I call is I think the Trump support is overrated. It seems like the Republican Party is shrinking, and the only ones that are left are the true Trump believers. Like his support goes up as the Republican Party shrinks. It's like as if to say, if you have 10 Republicans and 9 of them are for Trump, and then the 10th Republican drops out, his support just went from 90% to 100%, and I think that's overblown, and I think Trump manipulates that to his advantage.
Thoughts about that, Dr. Horne?
Well, that's a plausible hypothesis, but as I said, and I'd like to repeat this, we cannot discount the possibility of more shenanigans, a la January 6, 2021, on the first Tuesday of November in 2024. It would be naive to rule out that sort of possibility.
Yeah. So before I forget to do so, I want to talk about, the Georgia indictment. They're now moving the commission that was approved by the Governor Brian Kemp to actually try to remove Fani Willis from office and try to get this case thrown out. The law that was recently passed allowing them to create this committee and get rid of folks like prosecutors like Fani Willis. State Senator Clint Dixon apparently said on Facebook that's why they passed the law, was for a case specifically like this. Does this alarm you?
Oh, sure. And it needs to be taken quite seriously. Obviously, pardon the expression, the trump card that the right wing has is the packing of the federal courts. Now, you mentioned before the break this possibility that there will be an attempt to bar Trump from the ballot because of the 14th Amendment, because he's an insurrectionist, etc. I think it's a credible legal cum historical point of view. The problem is it's very difficult for me to believe that the U.S. Supreme Court will accept that argument, since they're basically politicians in robes. And so we need to take this attempt to remove Fani Willis quite seriously, because recall that they removed the progressive prosecutor in San Francisco. In Florida, Governor DeSantis is bragging and boasting about removing 2 prosecutors who were too far to the left for him. As a matter of fact, there is a holy crusade going on right now against prosecutors who refuse to toe the line.
Right, and it's let's say they did manage to remove Fani Willis, although that law is even being challenged in courts. But let's say they did. Does that mean? I mean, another prosecutor steps up, right? I mean, the case doesn't go away.
Well, sure, but I'm sure the next prosecutor will have read the newspapers, and he or she probably wants to keep his or her job, and so will not walk in the footsteps of Fani Willis and do the same thing that led to her being removed. And so I think that it would be folly and naive to simply rely upon the good wishes and goodwill of the judiciary to rescue us from this catastrophe.
The criminal cases do seem pretty serious against the president, the former president, and it's, significant, right, that his bid to move the January 6th case until whenever after he's president, failed, right? It's now scheduled for March 4th of next year. How significant is that? CNN keeps showing the calendar of all of his court appearances and all these cases. I don't know how you campaign, but how significant is that?
Well, it's quite significant, but also significant. I trust that this was reported. I didn't see it in the newspapers I read, at least not with any emphasis. The utter disrespect that was shown for the black woman judge in Washington, D.C. was just disgusting. I mean, the Trump lawyer did everything except punch her in the face. It was the kind of disrespect you usually don't see to a federal judge, and that does not necessarily bode well. However, she tended to stand her ground. She did not accede to their demand that the case be rolled over into April 2026. And Mr. Trump will be spending a lot of time in courtrooms as he campaigns to become the Republican nominee.
Yeah, when we come forward, handing you the mic, Dr. Gerald Horne, I have so many questions, and I want to let you choose which one you want to answer. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time, and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Dr. Gerald Horne, official, a KBLA contributor. What do you want to leave us with? And please make that include your latest book. Dr. Horne? Perhaps we have lost Dr. Gerald Horne. But
Am I here?
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. The easiest question to answer is my latest book is Revolting Capital, Racism, and Radicalism in Washington, D.C., 1900 to 2000. But next month, I have another book drop acknowledging radical histories, conversations with Gerald Horne. And then a few weeks after that, another book will drop, I Dare Say, the Gerald Horne Reader. It's a collection of articles and essays I've written, collected in one volume, so to speak.
Wow. Busy 2023.
Well, I work so others can play.
I love that. Okay, out of all the things we talking about and didn't get to, what would you like us to focus on right now?
Well, the BRICS Summit in Johannesburg is potentially a game changer. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa meeting in Johannesburg. They're really plotting a new international order. Although they don't admit it, they're seeking to eclipse the United States of America and the North Atlantic countries. They have a BRICS bank that's already making loans. They're going to stop using, or they're going to try to stop using the dollar in terms of trading between and amongst themselves, which will weaken the U.S. currency, presumably. This has enormous implications for African development. It has enormous implications for Black consumers. So I would hope that our community and our intellectuals and organizations would pay more attention to this potentially monumental breakthrough.
When you say implications for Black consumers, what do you mean by that?
Well, if the dollar weakens, that means that the dollars in your pocket may not buy as much, particularly for items that are imported into the United States. And, cars are imported into the United States. All manner of items are imported to the United States. And so this has potentially game-changing possibilities.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, it's surprising in a way that it's taken this long for something like BRIC to emerge. And it's, it's telling that it's happening right now at a moment, what I would see as a real moment of weakness for our country.
Oh, clearly, because the United States is in a proxy war with Russia. It's in a brewing conflict with China. Recall that at the Republican Party debate, that's one of the issues that Ramaswamy raised. He wants to cut a deal with Russia so that he can focus like a laser beam on China. And actually, that's the Trump line as well. So the United States is facing a lot of difficulties right now, the presidential election not least.
Yeah. You got a minute left, Dr. Gerald Horne. We don't have time to talk about the Wagner Group, but what else do you want to share with us?
Well, I should also have mentioned that BRICS is now the BRICS plus 6. They included Ethiopia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Argentina. Next year, when they meet, they'll probably include Algeria. There's possibility of Cuba being included, possibility of more African nations also being included. Many people were wondering why Nigeria wasn't included, for example.
But Argentina is? Hello.
Yeah, no. I mean, all the problems in that country.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Horne, as always, thank you for blessing our microphones with your wisdom and knowledge, and look forward to talking with you again soon. And I'm looking forward to, I dare say, Conversations with Gerald Horne and Revolting Capital, 3 books either out right now or coming in the next weeks ahead, where we can have the opportunity to support those who support us, Dr. Gerald Horne, and also make ourselves a little smarter. Thank you, Dr. Horne.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we have, this is what you call a major transition here. We're going to talk about sexual health. That's our daily deep dive today. Hey, keeping it real and keeping it, keeping it real and keeping it raw, I guess I'll say, in the spirit of Wise Pause, looking at aging and all of the misconceptions around that. That's up next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Maryland, Baltimore African-American Mayor Brandon Scott is launching an attendance challenge for Baltimore City Public School students. The initiative challenges every student to be on time